Am I right? Windows, siding, gutters, those suckers are going to twist your arm and get you to buy, or they won't leave your house at night. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and I want you to know we don't have high-pressure sales. In fact, we don't even have salespeople. Nope, we have estimators. That's a huge difference. Estimators are trained to look at the entire scope of the project, to see and know if there are any problems, like rotten wood, wood-borne insects, or construction issues specific to your house or your neighbors. Salespeople are more concerned about playing those silly price games. Buy one, get one free, sign today and get 40% off, as if they didn't just jack the price up to give you a fake discount. RGS Exteriors estimators are going to give you a great quote. No games, no tricks, no nonsense. Call RGS Exteriors to quote your exterior project. Our number is 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's rgsutah.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair. Save up to 20 cents with DinoPay. With emergency traffic, here's Ricky Meese.
We do have a lot of problems throughout the valley on the drive. One is a vehicle fire in Morgan County. Emergency traffic for drivers on westbound I-84 at Mountain Green. Now, the freeway had been closed at times in both directions. I believe now it's partially blocked, at least on the westbound side. Can't really tell from the traffic cameras, but we do have delays both east and westbound in this portion of Morgan County. You can expect possible intermittent closures, and the heavier delays are definitely on the westbound side of travel where the vehicle fire occurred, with backups to Peterson, and heavy delays continue on northbound I-15 in Utah County due to an earlier fatal crash involving a rolled semi in Payson. That right lane still blocked with backups from 800 South Payson into Santaquin. We also have a crash on State Street in the Murray Midvale area at about 6700 South. Don't miss the amazing Utah Auto Expo, January 12th through 15th at the Mountain America Exposition Center. See the newest cars, trucks, electric vehicles, all in a non-selling environment. AutoExpoUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Cloudy today with light snow in the valleys. More snow showers expected tomorrow afternoon. Then a bigger storm arrives Saturday night and Sunday with up to 4 inches of snow in valley locations and a foot or more in the mountains. Right now it's 34 with some light snow in Salt Lake City. I'm Dale Spalding from KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The headline yesterday was, for the first time in our nation's history, we surpassed $34 trillion in debt. That's a pretty hefty headline, but there's a whole lot underneath it. When it comes to solving that $34 trillion problem, we get a lot of shoulder shrugging and a lot of finger pointing and a lot of political antics. But let's get down to, where's the real solution lie? Is there one? And how do we get there? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, one of those historic days that we don't like to be too historic about. Not a stellar milestone that we've made in the United States, hitting $34 trillion in debt. And the bigger question is, okay, we're in the bottom of the big hole. The first thing we need to do is stop digging, and so we're going to talk about that. But then how do we prevent this from being a downward spiral and a doom loop that's going to continue to cause problems and ultimately is going to hurt the poor and the most vulnerable among us the most? And very few are willing to get beyond the headlines. Both sides of the aisle love to shout the talking points at one another about the problem. But there aren't very many people talking about how do we fix it and how do we actually move it forward. Well, someone we'd love to have on this program, because she's always thinking about it in terms of what's the practical, tactical way to start moving things forward. Romina Botch is the Director of Budget and Entitlement Policy at the Cato Institute. And Romina, a belated happy birthday to you yesterday, a happy new year, and we're celebrating with $34 trillion in debt.
Thank you, Boyd. Not great news. One easy way to fix this right away, we could just ask every single American to chip in, just $100,000 per person, and we could pay off the national debt.
Oh, that is a scary thought to me. As a family with 5 children, that's a pretty staggering number in my household. So as we look at this, and there is all of the antics, but I want to get to some of the things that you have been leading us towards and talking about, things that the Cato Institute has been putting forward in terms of what is the path forward. How do we get beyond? I always lay out the premise that you cannot get 34 trillion in debt through conflict. It's collusion. It's both sides of the aisle. So we'll equal opportunity offend everybody on that one. But now let's start marching it forward. Where do we begin?
Yeah, you're right that the fiscal irresponsibility has been bipartisan. It's the one thing that Congress seems to be able to agree on across the aisle. Is the way to negotiate spending disagreements is to just get all you want and give the other side all that they want. And it's been repeated bouts of just paying off the other side to get the policy wins that you want. We're seeing negotiations like this play out likely early this year with concerns over sending more aid to Ukraine and Republicans wanting more border money in order to do that. So it's been that just playing up each side. However, there has been some positive progress in Congress. One thing I'd like to call out is now former Senator Mitt Romney. He had sponsored the Trust Act now it's 2 years ago, in 2022, and just last year in November of 2023, he actually joined an effort for setting up a bipartisan commission by introducing the Fiscal Stability Act in the Senate just before Senator Romney retired. And I thought that this was a really good indicator that Congress is moving closer to finding a bipartisan solution to stabilizing our debt, meaning preventing it from going out of control even further.
Yeah.
The big change between the Trust Act and the new Fiscal Commission bill is that it would actually include independent experts on the commission to advise members of Congress and bring some objectivity into the mix away from electoral concerns. Because as you're well aware, the big issue, of course, is that the major programs that are driving us deeper and deeper into debt and that are responsible for the vast majority, 95%, in fact, of our long-term unfunded obligations are also electorally extremely popular, even though they're unaffordable. And that puts politicians in a bind, which is where a commission can come in really handy. And those programs, of course, are Medicare and Social Security.
Yeah, and I want to unpack that just a little bit. And Senator Romney and Senator Manchin did reintroduce this just this week as they get into the new Congress. And I think it will be, of course, Senator Romney announced he wouldn't run for re-election. He still has all of this year. He has until January of 2025 to get this all done. So we hope it's part of a legacy effort there from Senator Romney as he comes down this last year in office as the senator from Utah. And so as they lay out this commission, I want you to explain for us why this commission with some of these outside experts creates that political cover, because that seems to be where we always get stopped. Even you go back to President Biden's State of the Union address, and Republicans and Democrats alike all said, nope, we're not going to touch Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Talk about how a commission would change that conversation and maybe provide the political cover that might actually lead to a solution.
Yeah, we've witnessed an abdication of fiscal responsibility when it comes to putting these old age benefit programs, Medicare and Social Security, on autopilot. These programs are growing rapidly at a much faster pace than our economy, at a faster pace than inflation over the long term. Just regardless of the economic resources available to fund these programs. And, when they were set up at a time where you had a small population of elderly Americans and a large and growing population of, younger Americans, when we had much higher fertility, the math on these programs seemed to make sense. But over time, as America has been aging, the population that's 65 and older is growing from 15% of our population to 20%, and the number of workers contributing, say, to Social Security and the Medicare Trust Fund compared to the individuals drawing from these programs has declined from 16 contributor for every beneficiary to roughly 3 contributors for every beneficiary, which is, of course, a huge change and puts a much larger burden on working Americans today. And even so, we're not collecting enough taxes to pay for these programs. So how does a commission help there? Well, if you think about it, members of Congress who are in office now, in most cases, are not responsible for the design of Medicare and Social Security. So we are asking them to take the hit, to take a political fall for making changes to programs that were put in place decades ago, where previous politicians got to reap the rewards for promising people benefits, even though they weren't funded. And now we're asking today's politicians to potentially risk their reelection prospects by making changes to programs, whether it's increasing taxes or reducing benefits or a combination of those things that could be very unpopular with the electorate. So by setting up a commission, you buy some political cover. You put some of the onus on the experts on the commission, and it makes it, I think, more clear to the American people that this is not a political problem, that this is an economic and a math problem. And it's not whether you're Republican or Democrat, that it's not about whether you like providing for individuals or you believe individuals should be able to provide for themselves, but this is really about what's best for the entire nation and what's affordable and what's sustainable. So bringing in those outside experts, I think, is really critical to provide that credibility and get those discussions a little away from the politics and the polarization of today.
Yeah, such an important conversation. Romina Baccia, Director of Budget and Entitlement Policy at the Cato Institute, helping us set the table in terms of the discussion we need to be having. Romina, again, happy birthday yesterday. Happy New Year. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you in the weeks ahead.
Thanks so much.
Again, that's Romina Baccia from the Cato Institute, and I think this is such an important point in terms of getting it out of the political space. It's an economic issue. The funds aren't there. We don't have enough workers. We aren't having enough babies in the country. The model no longer works the way it was originally set up. I don't think it was sustainable then either. I think we got lucky for about 50 years, but now we've got to face the truth. And what leader is going to help us get to the truth, and how do we actually begin to change the dynamic of that conversation out of the political space, out of the ads that will say, oh, you want to push grandma off the cliff, to actually having a reasonable, rational conversation about where we are and where we need to go so that we can be sustainable moving into the future. We're going to stay with this conversation on the economic front. Coming up next, we're going to look at the impact of the economics and the perception of it on the political race of 2024, and we'll look back in history for a little perspective. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. We're just days away.
State lawmakers are already hard at work on a number of bills,
making decisions that affect you.
Utah's 2024 legislative session starts in January. Get updates on every bill with Tim and Amanda mornings and Jeff Kaplan afternoons. Eye on the Hill 2024
on KSL News Radio.
Start the new year off with a bang of big savings during the Omaha Steaks end-of-season event. You can stock up on all your favorites and get 50% off site-wide. That's 50% off incredible steaks like their legendary Butcher's Cut Filet Mignon, or sink your teeth into their memorable Butcher's Cut Top Sirloin. Just go to omahasteaks.com. Plus, when you use code QUALITY at checkout, you'll get an extra $30 off your order. From perfectly aged tender steaks to juicy burgers, decadent desserts, and classic comfort meals, every bite is guaranteed perfect. For a limited time, get 50% off site-wide. Plus, save an extra $30 when you use promo code QUALITY at checkout. Start the new year off right and warm up your winter with tender steaks and hearty home-cooked favorites from Omaha Steaks. All 50% off with their end-of-season event. Make sure to enter the promo code QUALITY at checkout to get that extra $30 off your order. Minimum purchase may apply. Omaha Steaks, America's original butcher.
If cabinets were a football team, Euromax cabinets would be the 1985 Bears, maybe the 1984 Niners. If cabinets were a basketball team, Euromax would be the 95-96 Bulls, maybe the 2016-2017 Warriors. If cabinets were a singer, Euromax cabinets would be Neil Diamond, rhinestones, sequins, and all. In fact, Neil Diamond was probably thinking about Euromax cabinets when he wrote and recorded Sweet Caroline. Max and Mike came together to start a cabinet company that brings the unique flair and style of Europe while keeping the craftsmanship and installation of America. Max moved here from Ukraine with years of European style, while Mike has 25 years of cabinet experience here in Utah. This is Hans Olsen, letting you know their service, style, and warranties are unmatched. They can help you design a kitchen to be the talk of the neighborhood. Their showroom's in Pleasant Grove, and you can see their world-class design by going to EuromaxFurniture.com. That's EuromaxFurniture.com. Euromax, built for you.
Looking for the best show deals on new and used RVs? You'll find them only in Ogden during the Northern Utah RV Show, January 11th through the 15th. We're bringing in new and used inventory and low show pricing inside the Golden Spike Event Center. For 4 full days, shop new and used travel trailers, fifth wheels, toy haulers, motorhomes, and more from the nation's top brands. Find early season discount pricing on all new models and fantastic used RV discounts like a 2011 Dutchman 185 DB Sport for just $9,995. You'll also find that every remaining 2023 is being sold at clearance pricing during the event. Plus, get no payments until April on approved credits and huge trade-in offers on your current RV. Go to NorthUtahRVShow.com to shop the best deals first. This show season, you'll find it all in Ogden. Admission and parking are free to the Northern Utah RV Show, January 11th through the 15th inside the Golden Spike Event Center. Open daily at 10 a.m., closed Sunday. Then we're back at it Monday, Martin Luther King Day from 10 to 5. Sponsored by Bish's RV. Don't miss it.
Hi friends, Dan the Laptop Man here from PC Laptops. I get a lot of emails with feedback from customers. Here's one. Dear Dan, I just had the best experience ever. I bought a computer from Shane at your State Street store. I asked several what I thought were really stupid questions. Shane was super courteous and made me feel comfortable through the whole process. People need to understand how important it is to support a local company, especially when your experience is so good. PC Laptops really does love me. Signed, Satisfied. I love hearing feedback like that. It really just gives me the chills. It's the whole reason why I got into the computer business in the first place. You can get a brand new PC Laptops desktop, and they start at only $29 a month. And it comes with a lifetime warranty. That means if anything goes wrong, we're going to take care of you. Just check us out at PCLaptops.com. That's PCLaptops.com. At PC Laptops, we really do love you.
Join Mike Stevens of Capital Wealth Advisors for Retire Right Radio, Saturdays at 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. That's Retire Right Radio with Mike Stevens, Saturdays at 5 a.m. and 9 p.m.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dale Spalding. First, 2 people died early this morning when a car crashed into a semi that had rolled over on I-15 in Payson. Another semi snarled traffic through Murray on I-215. Second, the commissioner of the Pac-12 says he could have saved the conference if its member schools had been more patient. Third, a school shooting in Perry, Iowa left 1 person dead and at least 2 injured. Right now, it's 39 and overcast in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and we're going to kind of stay in the economic space for a minute. And in our first segment, we had Romina Baccia on from the Cato Institute talking about just the dynamics of the realities of what we have to deal with in honestly addressing $34 trillion of national debt and trillion-dollar deficits year after year. And it's turned into this ultimate political weapon for the left and for the right. And there's some history around that. And sadly, it's becoming worse, which is paralyzing Congress and whoever is in the White House from actually doing what needs to be done, because everything is politics. We're so far away from good policy discussions and debates. I'm all for a good policy debate rather than just the performative politics stuff that we keep being served up. But it's interesting, and as always, we want to look back. History always gives us some very important lessons and cues. And there's an interesting one roiling and boiling as we go into this 2024 election season. Many on the Democratic left, we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about the Republican pursuit of the nomination for president. Now we're going to talk about President Biden for a minute and where he is and where he's struggling and what he needs to do to turn the corner. And sadly, I think part of turning the corner may be turning back the clock to 1948. There was a brilliant piece today by Nate Cohn in the New York Times talking about a time that's not dissimilar from what we're in today, where the economy looked pretty similar, where consumer confidence was way down, but unemployment was also low, where inflation was sky high, but again, unemployment was low. And so there were this really interesting disconnect. And so Cohen actually goes back to 1948. And in 1948, of course, there was a lot of pessimism in the country. And Harry Truman, of course, as the president, his popularity had collapsed by early in the year in 1948, which was the election year that year. His approval rating, this may ring and sound familiar to President Biden, was at 36%, which was way down from where he started, of course, post World War II, up over 90%. And many had predicted that he was going to lose to Thomas Dewey, the Republican. And a lot of the early head-to-head polls show that Dewey was going to stamp out the president, and that the president would not be reelected. So the interesting thing that takes place is, again, look at where we are today. We've had this period of high inflation, and even though there are a lot of really strong numbers, the GDP keeps going, unemployment is low, there's a lot of really strong signals and signs within the economy, but the American people are just not feeling it. And so President Biden, he turned to Bidenomics, that was going to be the slogan, that was going to be the way to engage the American people, and it has fallen so far below flat. It has cratered as a messaging. Even his own people have acknowledged that it has been a failure. Former Obama communication wizard David Axelrod said they just need to get rid of it because it's hurting them, not helping them. Not even a neutral statement. It is a big weight around the president's shoulders. And so if you turn back the clock to 48 and to see where Truman went, it's actually interesting because I'm sensing we're going to see a repeat of this in the coming weeks as we listen to the president. So we're going to turn back the Wayback Machine here, courtesy of Peter, and we're going to go back to President Harry Truman, again, facing horrible inflation, bad economic mood from the American people, but at the Democratic National Convention 1948, he beat the challengers back with a pretty powerful statement.
And every one of them is important. Two of them are of major concern to nearly every American family. The failure to do anything about high prices and the failure to do anything about housing. I am therefore calling this Congress back into session on the 26th of July.
So he tapped into where the country was dealing with the high prices, high inflation, and he went to housing. Sounds kind of familiar. But the thing he really did was he pinned it on a phrase that he turned for the Republicans, the do-nothing Congress. And in that speech, the little segment that you just heard, he said, I'm calling him back into session in the middle of July because we have to deal with this for the American people. And it was the beginning of the turning of the tide for Truman. He went to a very populist message. He went to this idea that it was the Republicans' fault. They were the do-nothing Congress, that he was the one who was on the side of the American people. He was looking out for the little guy. And that's where things started to turn for Truman. Of course, that election went all the way up to the very end, and including the very famous printing of headlines that had him losing, which, of course, he did not do. He actually won. So there's a couple of lessons in there. One is a good communication strategy is always helpful if you're trying to win an election. Populism has a place in American politics, and we actually saw former President Donald Trump harnessed it, marshaled it, and I would say weaponized it to win the election in 2016. And I think he will attempt to do that again. It's a grievance mentality. It's a populist message. And now President Biden is sort of stuck kind of going down the same path. And will President just point fingers at Congress and say this is a do-nothing Congress? You need me. And will he be able to make that connection to say, I'm the one that's looking out for you? So we're going to have dueling populist messages, I think, throughout the year here in 2024. The other interesting thing in terms of Truman's election win was that he also went to another really important piece of the puzzle, which was stability. Really laying it out that, yes, this is going to be hard. This is going to take some time. There's a tough economic reality. But I can provide you stability instead of chaos. Should also ring a little bit true. I think that's a message we're going to hear a lot of. In fact, I think we're going to hear it on Friday from President Biden. He's moved up his speech at Valley Forge. He's actually going to deliver that on Friday the 5th rather than January the 6th for weather concerns there back east with storms rolling through. But he is going to make the case for democracy, and he is going to make the case for himself for stability. And so those will be the messages. The president will lay out whether you like me or not. The choice is stability with me or chaos with somebody else. He will point fingers at the do-nothing Congress, and he can rightly do that. They have done very little, if anything, other than make a lot of things worse and spend a lot of your money, which we talked about at the open of the show. And so then the question will be, can the president make the connection for the American people of what he's trying to tout as his strengths and accomplishments? Can he square that circle with the reality of what the American people are living? That's going to be the test, and he's going to have a communication strategy equal to what he believes is the policy strategy in order to convince the American people that he deserves 4 more years. All right, we'll go ahead and step aside for some bottom of the hour news. When we come back, we're actually going to dig into why the dysfunction, because dysfunction is how you end up $34 trillion in debt. We'll break that down coming up next. Stick around. More Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. 23andMe responding to a lawsuit claiming they didn't protect user data. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
In a response to a class action lawsuit, the genetic testing company is claiming the hack that affected more than 1 million data points was a user issue and not a company issue. The hackers targeted accounts with credential surfing tools, finding users that recycled passwords. The Identity Theft Resource Center says recycled passwords are a problem and do compromise data, but websites can also take additional steps to help protect its users.
KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The U.S. confirms it struck a pro-Iran militia site earlier today in Baghdad. Pentagon spokesperson General Pat Ryder says, including the militia's commander, 2 people were killed for planning and carrying out attacks against American personnel.
It is important to note that the strike was taken in self-defense, that no civilians were harmed, and that no infrastructure or facilities were struck.
General Ryder says they want to keep the conflict from spreading, but they will act when U.S. forces are attacked. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day right now, 78 points. The NASDAQ, though, is down about 41 points right now. And our KSL weather looks like snow off and on until we get to the weekend, and then quite a bit more snow expected. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors to tell you about our 10-year everything guarantee. Most contractors spout off having great warranties that last forever. But those warranties are always, and I do mean always, riddled with loopholes, exception, fine print, and nonsense. At RGS Exteriors, we cover everything. Parts, labor, material, everything and anything for 10 full years. There's no cost to you whatsoever. No hoops to jump through, no exceptions. Yes, the products we sell, like James Hardie Siding, our windows, gutter covers, come with a 25 to 50-year manufacturer's warranty, just like everybody else. But the truth is, the products almost never fail. It's always the labor and material which is never covered, so you're stuck paying for service calls. For peace of mind, call RGS Exteriors. You'll sleep easy for 10 full years. 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's 801-280-3110 or online rgsutah.com. Gutters, siding, windows, and all exteriors with the 10-year everything guarantee.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Once again, emergency traffic right now brought to you by Sinclair. Save up to 20 cents with DinoPay. Here's Ricky Meese.
Heavy delays continue in Utah County due to an earlier fatal accident northbound I-15 in Payson. About 4 to 4.5 miles of solid backups with delays reaching Santaquin. Emergency traffic also in Morgan County. This is due to an earlier vehicle fire westbound I-84 near Mountain Green. That right lane still blocked, and we have a rollover crash with possible injuries southbound Legacy Parkway in Woods Cross, blocking a left lane of travel. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, cloudy today with light snow in the valleys. More snow showers expected tomorrow afternoon. Then a bigger storm arrives Saturday night and Sunday with up to 4 inches of snow in valley locations and a foot or more in the mountains. And right now, 36 degrees with a little light snow. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, we've been talking today about the $34 trillion in national debt. Again, all we have to do is if every man, woman, and child in the country just chips in $100,000 each, we can knock out the national debt. So if you're feeling extra generous today, just whip out that checkbook, or maybe you could, I don't know if you can Venmo $100,000 to the federal government. That'd be interesting to find out. I doubt it. But this dysfunction that we're seeing that gets us $34 trillion, and as I always say, equal opportunity offender on all of this. Democrats and Republicans alike have spent and spent and spent and colluded to spend more. And we're going to see that over the next couple of weeks, by the way, just in case you're curious how fast we'll go higher than $34 trillion. It's going to happen fast, and it's going to happen before the 19th because we'll have another package of bills that will go through, and there'll be a lot of new spending in there to grease the skids, and that will just keep driving that national debt even higher. So as we look at that and we look at the dysfunction, it's important for us to get a clear handle on where we are. It is impossible to chart a course in anything until you know where you actually are. If you don't know what the present reality is, it's impossible to chart a course to where you want to go. It's like that little red dot on the map at the mall. It says you are here. So we have to have a clear understanding of where are we and what is the root cause of all this dysfunction in our nation's capital. And so I want to attack that from a couple of different aspects as we look at some of the drivers of dysfunction, which also drive national debt, increase inflation, and put more problems and more pressure on American families. So last August, I had a conversation with Utah Representative John Curtis, trying to get a clear handle on why are we where we are today. And we talked about his firsthand experience in Washington, seeing wrong behaviors rewarded, backwards incentives amongst the members of Congress.
So it's been my observation that the bad behavior is rewarded and good behavior is ignored back there. And that's by the media, it's by donors, it's by constituents. And so it tends to attract those who will do and say things that get a lot of attention but don't really get anything done, and often actually are very detrimental to the process.
Representative Curtis also talked about some of his own experience with seeing the attention going to the wrong things and how not engaging with the culture war issues of the day is often seen as negative rather than a focus on the real work of where government should be focused.
There was a time when I was down in southern Utah. We were working on some really important things for the Navajo tribe with all of my staff, and people back in the district were mad that I hadn't responded to a tweet of President Trump that morning. And that's where I felt like, gosh, I wish you could see what I was doing that you would have pulled me off of to respond to that tweet. And that's why I say, if you look at the whole body of work, what overall are you doing? What things are you accomplishing? Not what did you do in that one moment or what did you do with that tweet?
So it's an important thing. It often happens in our nation's capital, and it's across the board, where you have good Democrats and good Republicans who are out serving their constituents, doing the right things, but then the constituents get upset because they're not on national cable news, or they don't have a tweet that has gone viral, or some video on TikTok that has been seen by a gazillion people. Like, do you want them to be popular? Do you want them to be celebrity? Or do you want a statesman or a stateswoman or someone who can actually lead or actually legislate? I know that's radical stuff, but we're rewarding all the wrong behaviors. And instead what we do is we foster bad habits in members of Congress because of what we reward. This is how Congressman Curtis described it.
I don't mind telling you, I felt a little hypocrisy myself with this one. I think we all do this. I think it's, some votes I have taken that either protect the Republican or hurt on the Democrat. But I think this is one of the things we all need to work on better, and that's calling out when people with our political philosophy do things that are not acceptable, and not over, and use that exact same standard on the other political side. And I don't mind telling you, I think we all struggle with this one.
And then finally, I want to get in one more piece from Representative Curtis from our conversation. He spoke of the lost art of stateswomanship, and how that may be the real starting point is to rethink what we're actually looking for in our members of Congress.
I'll give you an example. So I went through an election last year and then met with a lot of people, talked with a lot of people. I didn't hear once the term statesman, not once. And that used to be a qualification that was envied and that we looked for and sought out. And not once did I hear the term statesman or anybody asking questions that got to the core of are you a statesman? And I think too often politicians tell people what they want to hear, which of course is one of the reasons I think people are so mad at elected officials. And they do what's easy instead of what's hard.
All right. So with that as a backdrop, let's look at where we are and then how do we get to where we want to go? Sadly, we see such a hyper-focus on party and the two parties that is the only choice there is out there, so that becomes its own fake fight and false choice. But when party is everything, then no decisions are made with political courage, and decisions are not made with the best interests of the American people in mind. It's about power over rather than persuasion, rather than legislation. And then what normally happens as we continue to play that out, then any idea that comes from, quote, the other side, you can't get into that because they're evil, awful, and horrible. And so that's why we have this kind of dysfunction. And the interesting thing to me is when you look at all of the issues that are coming down the pike, many of them, including these fiscal issues that will swallow us up because they're coming. It's the absolute predictability of consequences. When you're $34 trillion in debt, there are some absolute, incredibly predictable consequences that are coming your way if you don't deal with it. And so the question will be, is there anyone who will actually lead, who will show political courage, who will ask not what is best for them politically or for the next election cycle, but what's best for the country? I would often ask candidates, give me something, an issue, a piece of policy that you are passionate about, that is so important to you, that you would be willing to lose re-election in order to get it done? We all should ask that of everyone we're voting for in any election. Because if you don't know what they're willing to lose an election for, there's a pretty good chance the only thing they're really interested in is winning the next election for themselves. It takes a little bit of thought to say, you know what? If I could solve the national debt and it would cause me to lose the next election, would I do that? That's a good question. Solving the border issue, revamping our immigration system, dealing with health care. Would you really be willing to lose an election in order to get that done and done right? Or to at least get it on a path that would be helpful to the American people? Because until we start getting politicians and elected officials who can think that way, who are willing to have that kind of political courage, we're going to keep getting the dysfunction that we've been getting, and we'll deserve it. It's a natural byproduct. And it's part of those absolute predictable consequences that come. And the path that we're on with performative politics is we're heading more and more to a kind of kakistocracy where the least capable, the least qualified will be those sitting in power, because the good people are going to say, you know what, that's crazy town, and I'm not interested in that. I can make a difference in my community. I can go run a business. I can be part of a nonprofit. And the best and brightest of the country will see that they can do more good elsewhere. And we need them elsewhere, and we need them in Congress, and we need them in the White House, and we need them in governor's mansions, and we need them in City Hall and county council offices. We need them in all those places. But we have to expect different, which means we have to ask different questions as voters. We can point out the dysfunction. It's very easy to see. It does not take a magnifying glass to see the kind of dysfunction that we are dealing with in the country. The question is, who will have the courage to lead, to restore things to regular order, to trust the process and the institutions, and to actually be honest? I think the most important quality for an elected official today is, I want you to tell me what I need to know, not what you think I want to hear. I want you to tell me what I need to know for myself, for my family, for my business, and for my community. And that's a very different conversation than putting out a pithy quote or a meme or a TikTok video or having a big argument and using a lot of pejoratives on late night cable news. We got to get to a different kind of leader if we're going to have a different kind of democracy and constitutional republic. We'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today the beginning of your fresh start with the IRS. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief now for your free confidential consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Jeff Kaplan here for my good friends at Advanced Window Products. Jake Weber and Nate Orchard are spreading the holiday cheer with their biggest sale of the year. If the wind whistles through your windows, if you want a fresh new look for your number one investment, your home, call Advanced Window Products and take advantage of this incredible end-of-year sale. Replace all of your windows and frames, and you get $2,500 off. But that's not all. You get a free premium glass upgrade. Insulate your home against the cold with double-pane windows and stylish frames, any style, any color, and they're built custom right here at their headquarters in Salt Lake City for 37 years. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. Plus, an additional $2,500 off and a free premium glass upgrade. You can save Save now, pay later, so take advantage. Call now, Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100, or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Hi, Doug Wright, and hopefully you're one of the lucky people who got a gift certificate or a gift card for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It's time to cash that thing in. You know, my son and I, every year, we have a little contest, who reads the most books, and the stakes are literally steaks. I asked Ian, because he won this year, I said, okay, where do you want to go get your steak? And he goes, come on, Dad, you know where. And of course, it's Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It is the best steak you are ever going to have, and it's waiting for you at 2 locations, Hotel Park City and downtown Salt Lake City. Think of all the great things that are going on in downtown Salt Lake City right now. Make dinner at Ruth's Chris part of your evening. And then, of course, up in the mountains right now, it's time to go skiing. And the perfect place for après-ski, enjoying that amazing meal, is right there at Hotel Park City. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. The best steak you have ever had is waiting for you at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Sign up for KSL text alerts and you could win cash. Text the word cash to 57500 for a chance to win $250. That's cash to 57500. Plus, you'll get breaking news and traffic updates right to your phone. Want to win more prizes? Text contest to 57500. Jazz fans, text the word jazz for breaking Utah Jazz news. And Cougar fans, text BYU to 57500 for the latest on the Cougars. Message and data rates may apply. For an alternate entry method and complete contest rules, go to KSLNewsRadio.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, 2 people died early this morning when a car crashed into a semi that had rolled over on I-15 in Payson. There was another semi crash that snarled traffic through Murray on I-215. Second, an executive of 23andMe says customers were responsible for a data breach because they used weak passwords. And third, an American strike in Iraq killed a top militia leader there who's been planning attacks on American forces. Right now, 36 degrees with a little light snow. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Well, we've been talking a lot about the dysfunction factor today, and we have this political environment that's rewarding the extremes and the performative politicians, the partisanship. And in all of that conversation, the whole idea of middle ground has almost become a bad word. It's often used as a pejorative, and somehow advocating for compromise, for coming together around common sense solution is seen as squishy or soft or sellout. There's so many different things that you can go into, but it's actually not the case. The reality is there is integrity and compromise. We learned that from our friend Joe Lieberman, and we're going to dig in a little deeper in terms of this conversation. There was a great piece today at Deseret.com by our friend Deandra Brown. Many of you will recognize the name Deandra Brown. She's a concert pianist, co-founder of the Foundation for Survivors of Abuse, works with Prevent Child Abuse Utah, and actually taught my children piano. Deandra, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I love that we have a musician weighing in on some political issues. Give us a sense of that.
You're right. It's not a natural occurrence where you get somebody with a strong artistic musical background also highly involved in advocating for specific issues that are important to our community. But I really do feel like it's a perspective that we need more of, that we need people who are leading with empathy, people who are used to collaborating. I mean, as musicians, that's part of what we do. We lead also with our feelings and emotions, and we care so deeply about music and people. So I feel like it's a natural correlation, at least for me, and would love to see more of it.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting all the right notes there in terms of collaboration, something that we're lacking deeply in a lot of our political spaces. And let's talk about that, because when you collaborate as a musician, you have something in your head and your heart that you're going to try to express musically. You're maybe collaborating with technical people and performers. Kind of walk us through that and let's draw some parallels.
Well, it's interesting because I've thought a lot about this over the years. In collaborating with my brothers and sisters, we perform together as the Five Browns, and very much we each have very strong opinions about everything, politics included.
As I siblings can be the most contentious of
Oh
spaces.
yes, we are quite honest, but we also have very strong opinions about musical ideas too. And so we realized very early on in performing together, we have to leave our ego at the door.
Love that.
We can petition each other and have passionate arguments about why we feel like something should be one way or the other. But when it comes down to it, we really have to set it aside for the greater good, for the artistic piece as a whole. So I feel like there is a lot of overlap in terms of the political spectrum and things moving forward.
And I love it. In a performance like that, we were talking about everybody wants to get to consensus. And I think we have this false sense of what that is. That consensus, to me, is not 100% agreement.
No.
It's 100% support once the decision has been made. And if you're going to perform something, if you're doing it with a little bit of a anger edge or I think my idea was better edge, it's not going to play well.
Well, I can guarantee you, even if one of us, one of my siblings or myself, quote unquote, lose the argument, there are effects because that position was raised. It changes the overall decision-making process, and quite frankly, makes for a better outcome. So we have found over the years the importance of voicing those different opinions, even if it doesn't see it all the way to the finish line, it certainly makes a difference in the overall effect.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We always talk about it in the context of always take the meeting, because even if you don't get through, you might reshape the conversation, or you might impact the performance in a significant way. And we need that more in government, whether it's local government, state government, national government. People who are willing to lean into the conversation, even if they don't get their way, but to be part of it changes it as a result.
Absolutely. You have to be open-minded. I always go into a situation having a pretty firm idea of what I think, whether it's a musical decision or even a political or advocacy decision. But I have really tried hard as an individual and as a community member to make sure that I'm not so ingrained in what I think to be correct that I can't listen and be open-minded and show empathy towards other voices or other opinions.
Yeah.
I think it makes a difference.
It makes all the difference, to be sure. You have done a lot of work in advocacy spaces, and give us a sense of that. Again, going at that from your background as a musician, as an artist, how has that shaped the way you've taken on some really tough issues, some very crucial conversations, and even some uncomfortable conversations?
Well, it's been important to me over the years that individuals need to see a face for some of these difficult issues. And it's not for everyone to be out there advocating for difficult causes, but it is so needed. We can sit around and debate and talk about a topic till we're blue in the face, but until you see how it really affects people and you see how their lives have been affected, you don't really understand the impacts of it. So I've tried as much as I can to share my experiences with things such as child abuse and mental health and suicide prevention, all these things that I'm passionate about. I feel like the more we talk about it, the more change is coming about.
Yeah, and it is that path to higher ground always begins on that common ground and being willing to say, okay. And I think another thing that I think artists bring to things in all of these discussions, whether it's a policy issue, whether it's an advocacy issue, is that artists are naturally curious. Because you're always exploring, again, whether it's a new connection of notes or a new way to present an old piece. Give us a sense of that in terms of, as you look at some of the issues facing our state, facing the nation, and getting to that higher ground of common ground, how do we have that kind of artistic curiosity about it?
Oh, I love that. In my years at Juilliard in New York City, where I did my schooling, I remember one of our teachers there said, the second I start to think I know everything, then it's time to go back to school. And it's time to, we need to be in a continual state of learning, of growing, and of listening and understanding. And so I feel like it's really important to each one of us as community members to not get so ingrained in what we think is right for us or what we think is right at this point in time, but to be open-minded. I think that's how society and systemic change happens, because we are challenging ourselves not to get to dig in so deeply where we are that we can't look ahead.
Yeah, so important. We so often misunderstand that common ground. You framed this so powerfully in your Deseret.com. Everyone should check that out today, Deseret.com, a piece by Deandra Brown called What We Misunderstand About the Middle Ground in Politics. So important. We've got just about a minute left, Deandra, and we're going to focus on this at the end of the show today at 2:50 and how important art is. There was a tremendous piece in The Hill about art in Afghanistan and how it connects to freedom. I think you have a take on that.
I absolutely do. I feel like it is vital for countries around the world, for organizations, for culture at large, to embrace the effects of art, to embrace the wonderful outcomes that come about because of pushing ourselves in an artistic direction. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you relate with people. It really does add such depth to our culture that sometimes we forget how it really seeps into so many areas of our community. And it's vastly important that we protect our rights and freedoms to share art and to be able to vocalize our opinions about art. And I think the more that we continue to value that, we will set ourselves up for a wonderful generation ahead that values this.
So powerful. And as I mentioned, we're going to come back to this at 2:50 today because there is an effort inside of Afghanistan to just suppress all the artists, whether it's visual art, whether it's music, whether it's poetry. And if you think of our nation's history, so much of it is wrapped up in art, in song, in folk tales. And it's an important part of it. Deandra, thanks for joining us today. Fantastic conversation. Again, check out her piece at Deseret.com. We look forward to having you back to continue the conversation. Deandra Brown joining us. That wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Top of the hour news is next. Stick around. Hour number 2 coming up.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Today is the last day UDOT is taking comments on its proposal to streamline freeway traffic from Highway 89 into South Ogden. UDOT spokesperson Mitch Shaw says this builds off of the major freeway upgrades they've already made all the way down to Farmington.
This is kind of another essential piece, another essential follow-on to that project that we need to do to make sure that people are able to get where they're going.
UDOT's environmental study is still ongoing, but Shaw says they'll likely have a final proposal ready this spring. 2 women died this morning when their car crashed into a semi that had rolled over on I-15 near Payson. The accident caused delays that have lasted into the afternoon. The Utah Highway Patrol says another crash this morning in Murray happened when a semi hit an abandoned vehicle parked off the side of the road. That truck scattered construction waste across the freeway. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia says he's not done prosecuting those who took part in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol 3 years ago. Matthew Graves presented information and videos showing some individuals they're still looking for.
We request the public's continued assistance in identifying individuals who committed crimes on January 6, 2021, who have yet to be identified, particularly the roughly 80 still unidentified individuals who were believed to have committed acts of violence against law enforcement officers.
More than 375 people who took part in that attack have been convicted and sentenced. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up, but just a few points, 10 points since the beginning of the day right now. The NASDAQ is down 81 points. And a KSL weather, the snow will continue on and off going into the weekend, and then Saturday night we'll get a substantial amount. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:02.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-838-6161. That's 800-838-6161. 800-838-6161.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Emergency traffic continues in southern Utah County, brought to you by Sinclair. Save up to 20 cents with DinoPay. Here's Ricky Meese.
We still have only one left lane of travel open due to the earlier crash northbound I-15 in Payson. Again, you have solid delays that stretch for about 4.5 miles into Santaquin. An option would be to exit off of northbound I-15 at the SR 198 junction, travel that up through Spring Lake, and rejoin northbound I-15 at 800 South in Payson. The good news for the emergency traffic that we had in Morgan County, an earlier vehicle fire had shut down that freeway both directions near Mountain Green. That's been cleared. All lanes of travel are open and the delays are cleared. Now, we have winter driving conditions in both Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons, where restrictions are in place, and a new accident with possible injuries in Murray. It's on the transition ramp going from westbound I-215 southbound to southbound on I-15. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, cloudy today, light snow in the valleys, then more snow showers expected tomorrow afternoon. A bigger storm arrives Saturday night and Sunday with up to 4 inches of snow in valley locations and a foot or more in the mountains. And right now, we're at 36 degrees. It's cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, many of the headlines over the last 24 to 48 hours have been about Harvard University. A long tradition in academia here in the United States. It's become a stand-in for a higher battle, I think, over higher education in our country. With the ouster of now former Harvard President Claudine Gay, there are some that are celebrating and cheering, others that are mourning and crying foul. We're going to get past the headline into the real issues. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, Harvard University is the latest United States college without a leader. Just a month after the University of Pennsylvania lost its own president following a disastrous testimony before Congress. It's interesting to see how this has all played out and where all the factions and tribes have gone following the ouster of Harvard University president. Some are saying, of course, that this is a good day. Some are saying this is a great blow to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs on campus. Others are mourning this as a racially driven attack against the first black woman president of Harvard University. Of course, President Gay faced an immense pressure campaign, which went after not only her congressional testimony about anti-Semitism on campus, and really what was a disastrous hearing for all three of the university presidents that were there, as well as facing some of her own plagiarism issues from the past. So the question to me, though, is where's the real issue? And it's just one more situation that is just emblematic of what's wrong with how we have discussions in our country. And so what I'm going to ask you to do for the next few minutes is to set aside all the politics of it, the victimhood versus the blame placing to the populist message. Just set all that aside for just a moment. And I just want to go through what this looks like, what this sounds like, so that we can all apply it in different areas of our life. None of us are going to Harvard very soon to be the president. I don't think there'll be anybody that's listening right now that's going to be on that list of who becomes the next president of Harvard University. But there are some important lessons that we can learn about how we go about complex issues and information that we get from different sources. That's the real issue. So let's kind of begin with the beginning. Of course, there was the disastrous testimony in front of Congress where you had three presidents of elite universities in this country had a tough time answering some pretty simple questions about anti-Semitism and genocide and hate speech on campus. Not hard stuff, not rocket science stuff. You certainly don't need a Harvard education to be able to get those answers correct. It's not that difficult. But the question in the fallout is all of those that are cheering to say they had scored some victory by pressuring Harvard to oust their president are also missing the point, because they've just made it a proxy battle for some culture war. So let's get to the real issues. Now, I want to give each of the sides, so to speak, in this, just so you get a little sense of how they're framing what took place. So first, here's conservative activist Christopher Rufo of the Manhattan Institute. He spotlighted the plagiarism in President Gay's past research. Here's how he framed it.
This was my initial goal to topple President Gay from the presidency of Harvard. But Harvard has to go much further. Harvard needs to abolish its DEI programs. It needs to put a permanent end to its racist admission system. It needs to pledge institutional neutrality on controversial political issues. And it needs to diversify the faculty, not on skin color, but on philosophy, on political belief, on viewpoints.
Now, when you start your answer by saying that my goal is to topple somebody, that always causes you to question everything else. At least it should cause the spidey sense to go up, and you should question everything else. Now, of course, conservative activists did not cause President Claudine Gay to have such a poor performance in front of Congress, nor was it conservatives that caused her to plagiarize, or as Harvard is framing it, have unfortunate duplicative language in some of the research. Those are things that happened way before. But again, you lose that because of the way the issue is framed as an us-them battle. On the flip side, Harvard professor of government Ryan Enos told NPR, here's what Gay's defenders see in her resignation.
If you don't think race played a factor in that, then I've got a bridge to sell you, right? Because, there's a lot of university presidents, and none of them came under the scrutiny she did. And of course, a lot of that's because she was the first Black president at Harvard. And of course, race played a part in that.
So, again, if you look at that, and if you're saying this is totally a race issue, again, things that happened back in the 1990s, she's got to own that. That's not a race issue. We started the program with this absolute predictability of consequences. those things come out. Now, I'm going to make a little prediction here. I guarantee you at this very moment, there are some groups on the left who are going to be going after some conservative presidents on campus or some others that they can spot who maybe did some plagiarism at some point in their academic or professional career. And so then it becomes this tit for tat, back and forth gotcha game that prevents us from having real, right conversations that matter. And that's the problem with all of this, is we get so caught in the distraction of it, we're not having the right conversation. And you can go through and say, well, was this a racial attack? Well, there was a white woman who was the president of the University of Pennsylvania. She was ousted first, so the one who goes second, does that become racist there? But what was it here? You can play all of that game until the cows come home, and none of it will take you anywhere in the end. And so what we have to start looking at and getting back to, of course, are the facts. Facts are funny things, and many of us don't like to deal with them. But that's where we have to get. And if we allow everything, if everything is a tribal battle, if everything is about them, they, those people, we lose our ability to see clearly on anything. Some days I wonder if we could even have an agreement that the sky is blue. I'm not sure. Somebody might call it into question. Someone might say it's small-minded. Some might say, well, that's an elitist view of things. And it sounds absurd, but all you have to do is go online. The absurdity is everywhere. And so the solution to all of that is we can't put our head in the sand, and we can't just retreat from the public square. It requires all of us to lean in a little more and to ask better questions and to look past the vitriol and the performative stuff. But that takes more effort on our part. It's much easier to have your emotions stirred with anger, fear, and frustration than it is to sit still, to think deeply, to ask a second or a third or a fourth level question, to check a source, to go upstream on the issue rather than downstream into social media. So the question for us, the think again moment in all of this, is on us. I forget who said it, that we're far more willing to stare at the sun than we are to look in the mirror and see where the answers really are. I do think it begins with each one of us. And while the incidents and the things that have gone on at elite institutions, those should all be on the table. Facts, figures, reality, crucial conversations. Let's have them all. But let's have them in a real way. Let's not have it in some sort of gotcha game or victimhood, because neither of those are noble. Neither of those move us forward. And so let's get out of that space. It takes a little work. It's a lot harder to look in the mirror. But that's where we have to begin individual. That's where we actually have to get. It was Taylor Swift. I should always quote Taylor Swift correctly. That's where we have to get. Taylor Swift was right today. I'm going to say that on the air. Taylor Swift was right. It is easier to stare at the sun than it is to look in the mirror. But we have to do it. And we need people at the highest levels of government and the highest levels of academic institutions, of business, of community, and yes, my house and your house. If we're going to get to it, we got to have a different kind of conversation, but it starts with each one of us. Give that a look in the mirror today. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. We're just days away.
State lawmakers are already hard at work on a number of bills,
making decisions that affect you.
Utah's 2024 legislative session starts in January. Get updates on every bill with Tim and Amanda mornings and Jeff Kaplan afternoons. Eye on the Hill 2024
on KSL News Radio.
Give the star in your life the brightest gift in the world. Name a star after them. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can name a star for birthdays, weddings, or even memorials. Over 45 years, we have named millions of stars for celebrities and individuals from around the world. The star you name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333.
You can live out your MasterChef dreams when you find a professional on Angie to tackle your dream kitchen remodel. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Inside to outside, repairs to renovations. Get started on the Angie app or visit Angie.com today. You can do this when you Angie that.
When you crash your car, you get it fixed. When your computer crashes, you get a new one. But what will you do if you've been saving in a 401k or an IRA and the market crashes? If you're in your 30s or 40s, you'll be just fine. But if you're in or near retirement, you could be in trouble. Mike Stevens and his team at Capital Wealth Advisors are here to help. They can run a risk analysis to see if you're too heavily invested in the market. Don't let the ups and downs of Wall Street control you or your retirement dreams. Call 801-210-5500 today to schedule your risk analysis with Mike Stevens and the team at Capital Wealth Advisors. That's 801-210-5500. Crashes happen. Question is, are you ready? Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
Jeff Kaplan here for my good friends at Advanced Window Products. Jake Weber and Nate Orchard are spreading the holiday cheer with their biggest sale of the year. If the wind whistles through your windows, if you want a fresh new look for your number one investment, your home, call Advanced Window Products and take advantage of this incredible end-of-year sale. Replace all of your windows and frames and you get $2,500 off. But that's not all. You get a free premium glass upgrade. Insulate your home against the cold with double pane windows and stylish frames, any style, any color, and they're built custom right here at their headquarters in Salt Lake City for 37 years. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. Plus an additional $2,500 off and a free premium glass upgrade. You can save now, pay later, so take advantage. Call now, Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
In order for small businesses to thrive, they need to be smart, efficient, savvy, staying ahead of the market at every turn, finding ways to do more with less, and taking advantage of every opportunity that comes their way. That's why Comcast Business is introducing the Small Business Bonus. For a limited time, you can get up to a $1,000 prepaid card when you switch to Comcast Business, the company with the largest, fastest, reliable network. So if you're a small business owner, don't wait. Call or go online to learn about the $1,000 bonus today.
Give your business a head start in 2024. Get started with fast speeds and advanced security for $49.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year agreement. Call or go online to switch today. Ends 2/21/24. Restrictions apply. New customers only with 50 megabits per second internet and security edge. EcoBill and autopay required. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. Prepaid card offer requires premium internet.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, UDOT is looking for public input on a plan to improve Highway 89 coming into South Ogden from I-84. Second, police in American Fork were asked to do a welfare check on an elderly couple and found their bodies. And third, the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C. is still looking for people who took part in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. 36 degrees and cloudy right now. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
One area where we've had a lot of rage and very little reason is at our southern border and dealing with our very broken immigration system. We know yesterday House Republicans paid a visit to the southern border with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. They've been trying to put pressure on the Biden administration to negotiate on an immigration bill, which they say must pass if Congress wants to do all the other things that have been tied together with this, including aid to Israel and to Ukraine. All of those things, I think, should be separated out because they're all independent and they should be dealt with that way. The fact that we roll all these things together is not the best way to run a railroad or to govern. But looking at the border, I think everyone knows it's broken. I think everyone recognizes that there are serious issues happening at the southern border and with a very, very broken, very antiquated system of immigration here in the United States. So with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson going south to the border, Utah Representative Burgess Owens, as well as Representative Celeste Malloy, went with the contingent that went down there to the border. And we have some comments from each of them as to what they saw, what things look like, and more importantly, what the conversation needs to be moving forward. I spoke just about an hour and a half ago with Congressman Burgess Owens, who had been returning from the border back to the state of Utah. He said that what he saw didn't match all the descriptions that he had been seeing of the 300,000 who had come to that checkpoint at the border over the last month.
At the average, around 46,000 people coming through that are just pushed back out into our country, different places. It just so happened the day we got there, it was as quiet and spick and span. I've never seen anything like it. I think there was maybe 200 people. Very, very slow moving, and actually going to the same location that we talk about all the time. What is it? The bridge that we see all the time where people are lined up. There was nothing at the bridge. There was no trash at the bridge. As we stood there, and actually, as Mike Johnson was doing, the speaker was doing the interview, maybe it was a family of 4 or 5 that came across that was allowed to come in as it went through the wire. But it said to me that obviously the Biden administration knows what's happening. They know when to turn it off. They know the cartel knows when to turn it off, and they turn it off when we're trying to expose the American people to the truth.
Now, newly elected Congresswoman Celeste Malloy was on with our friends Dave and Dujanovic earlier today. She talked about why she joined this delegation to the southern border and what she heard as she spoke with those immediately involved in the enforcement of the border.
I went to the border largely because I wanted to see for myself what was going on there, but also because my friend Tony Gonzalez represents that district, and he had told me that it's not a partisan issue in that part of Texas. You know, Republican, Democrat, recent immigrants, everybody's had it. Their systems are overwhelmed, and that is what I saw there. The sheriffs we talked to are beleaguered. The Border Patrol we talked to is, you know, they have a good attitude about their jobs, but they're overwhelmed. They're processing paperwork instead of patrolling and picking people up. So my takeaway is we really don't have a choice. We have to have control of our border.
Representative Malloy explained to Dave and Debbie why she sees illegal immigration as a humanitarian crisis being driven by cartel activity and human trafficking.
And word is out worldwide, I guess, that our border isn't secure. And so people are showing up expecting to be able to get across, and they can't get to the border without going through territory controlled by the cartels. So the cartels pick them up and extort them and take advantage of them. It really is a immoral human tragedy that's going on south of the border, and we've never had complete control over the border. But if we had much better control, that market would dry up.
And so as you look at that component to it, I do think it's important that both Congressman Owens and Representative Malloy talk about those that are actually there, that are doing the hard work and heavy lifting. Everyone criticizes the photo op opportunity, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. Everyone complains about that. I think it's been ironic and even tragic on this issue that you'll have Democrats criticizing Republicans for going to the border for a photo op. You'll have Republicans, criticizing Democrats and counting how many days it's been since the president has been to the border. Both sides criticizing each other for lack of progress on dealing with a broken immigration system. And all the while, nothing is changing other than photo ops and fundraising for both sides. So I think it was important that Utah had 2 representatives there at the border, not just to see from the photo op standpoint, but more important to have the conversations as to what is going on, what is exhausting and exasperating law enforcement, cities, mayors, and a system that is just collapsing on top of itself. Now, Representative Malloy said that as she returns to Washington at the beginning of next week, that the focus of the House is going to be to get the spending bills passed. Of course, shutdown showdown clock has begun. The 19th is the day. But she also talked about how the visit to the border would hopefully put pressure on the government to get some action and get some things moving forward. Here's what she said to David Janovic.
Right now, everyone in the House is really focused on those spending bills. We know those deadlines are coming up, and we have to have something done before the deadlines. Nobody wants a shutdown. Nobody wants a CR. The majority of us want spending bills passed on time. And for the House, the border is an issue that we've already legislated. Funding for it may become a sticking point. I don't know. I think that's one of the reasons we went to Eagle Pass yesterday, is to put some pressure on the rest of the government to step up and help solve this problem.
And then finally, in my conversation with Representative Owens, he gave me a rundown, again, looking forward to next week when the House reconvenes on Tuesday of next week. This was what he shared as the House Republicans' plan and priorities from the policy front to actually address what's going on at the border.
That we're going to prioritize, number one, the border. We have to. We can no longer allow Biden to take money and just to process people coming through faster. We have to make sure that we have in place something that will slow down the pace, allow us to kind of protect the American people as they come as we continue to move forward.
And so as we look at all of that, again, I do think it's important for representatives to go to the border to see what's going on, and not just to see and to get pictures, but to talk to those who are most impacted by what's going on at the border. That's the crucial part of the conversation. Then the test, the challenge, is what comes next. And can you go back and will Democrats meet Republicans back in Washington next week? Will they sit down and will they have a real conversation? You've heard me say it on this show before, and I'm going to say it again. I still firmly, passionately believe that we could solve 94% of the immigration problem in this country and what's happening at the border in a single afternoon on the floor of the House and the Senate, because everybody agrees. Everybody agrees. We need a secure border. We need to update the system. We need to make it easier to come into the country legally than it is to come illegally. We need to have the right incentives in place. We need to know who comes in, who goes out. We need to be able to deal with those that are legitimately coming here seeking asylum. No one's more compassionate than the American people. And we need to make sure we have a process that allows that part of what makes America extraordinary to work as well. All this can be done. It is not a question of a policy or some magic pill. It's political will that's the question. And whoever has it, whoever demonstrates it and shows us, will be the one who can actually lead the nation. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top story this hour. And we have breaking news. We're learning more now about the shooting at a high school in Perry, Iowa this morning. ABC News reports 6 people were wounded in the attack. 1 was killed. That was a 6th grader, according to officials who briefed media at a news conference a few minutes ago. The shooter was a 17-year-old high school student, Dylan Butler. He died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Perry, Iowa is a rural community about 40 miles northwest of Des Moines. Police in American Fork are investigating after 2 bodies were found inside a home there. Chief Cameron Paul says officers were asked to do a welfare check on an elderly couple.
We got enough information that led us to eventually make entry into the home. And at that point in time, we located 2 deceased individuals inside of the home.
And Chief Paul says the couple was last seen in mid-November. He says they're investigating the couple's death as suspicious. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. New details on an attack on a judge in Las Vegas by a man who is being sentenced for aggravated battery. ABC's Alex Stone reports.
This was the sound as defendant Deobra Redden ran toward the judge's bench, jumped over it, and attacked Judge Mary Kay Holthus. Redden refused to come to court from jail on Thursday for a hearing on the attack. Prosecutors are still deciding on charges. DA Steve Olson says he's been communicating with the judge.
She's fine. She's shaken up, as most people would be. Couple of bruises.
A marshal was also injured. Redden's bond is now set at $54,000. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, at the close of trading today, the Dow was up, but just by 10 points or so, and the NASDAQ down 81 points. The S&P 500 was down 16. Our KSL weather, we're headed toward a snowy weekend. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
When's the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? It's now. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and I remember years ago being sent home from elementary school with a small tree in a styrofoam cup. I know some of you can relate. If that was planted, it's now bigger than you are. Your finances are the same way. The best time to get started, or the best time to get a second opinion, is now. And with time and patience, imagine how big your financial tree could be. 20 years ago, if you invested $1,000 in Apple stock, it could be worth over $500,000 today. That is a big tree. Do that for you and do that for someone you love. Call Trajan Wealth today and help us help you plant that financial tree. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600. Or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Emergency traffic continues in a couple of places around. Brought to you by Sinclair. Save up to 20 cents with DinoPay. Here's Ricky Meese.
Well, northbound I-15 in Utah County has been a mess all night and all morning into the afternoon. UDOT is not expecting to have this crash cleared until about 4:30, 5 o'clock this afternoon. So here's what's left. A right lane still blocked northbound I-15 with the remainder of that crash in Payson at 800 South. With only a left lane of travel open, we still have stop-and-go delays back to Santaquin. Now, Salt Lake County, we do have a crash in the cleanup stages, 4500 South, 500 West. Also an accident, 1700 South, 3rd West, blocking a left turn lane. And restrictions in place for both Big and Little Cottonwood canyons. You got to observe the traction laws for those canyons where we have winter driving conditions. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, cloudy today, light snow in the valleys, then more snow showers expected tomorrow afternoon. A bigger storm arrives Saturday night and Sunday, bringing up to 4 inches of snow in valley locations, perhaps a foot or more in the mountains. 36 degrees and cloudy right now. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
We've got breaking news with Jessica Lowell.
Yeah, Boyd, we're learning Orem Fire believes that the fire at the 20,000 square foot home in the area of 450 East and 1450 was intentionally started. They just finished a press conference and they say they came to that conclusion based on the behavior of the fire. They've opened up a police tip line. The house was listed at just under $4 million. Boyd.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, this headline caught my attention today, as it often does, especially if it has the name Tim Carney next to it. New proposal hurts families with multiple kids attending college. I think we have a few of those here in the state of Utah and across the country. Most college attendees are very familiar with the program known as FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's an important part of financial package for people heading to college. And we want to look at what's going on and why things might be getting harder for families that might have more than one student attending college. And to help us break all of that down, we do turn to Tim Carney, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. He studies civil society, family, and economic competition. He's also a senior columnist at the Washington Examiner. You can check out his article there at the Washington Examiner today. He's also the author of an upcoming book that we're going to have him back on to talk about called Family Unfriendly, How Our Culture Made Raising Kids Much Harder Than It Needs to Be. Tim, Happy New Year. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me.
All right. So the Department of Education obviously plays a pretty critical role in financial aid. For our listeners, just kind of break that down in terms of what is this program, how does it work, and what are these new changes?
Yeah, so you might remember from when you went to college, or if your children are there or have gone there, the federal, it's the FAFSA is how I pronounce it. It's a federal financial aid form. So it serves two purposes. One, it's how the federal government allocates the subsidized student loans and federal grants, such as a Pell Grant, right? That it's how they calculate whether you are in need of this money. But it's very knowingly and widely used by private colleges when they're determining how they would hand out their own aid, and states would do this too. So it's kind of it's the entirety of federal student aid, and it's a bedrock of all state and private student aid, this application. And it was really complicated, and so Congress a few years ago wrote what they called the FAFSA simplification bill, and that has just gone into effect this January. And one of the consequences that not a lot of people knew about beforehand, including me, was exactly this, that people with multiple kids in college at the same time will probably end up paying more for college and be much less eligible for financial aid because of these changes.
As this often happens with changes, nobody really knows until it's already implemented. And so break it down in terms of let's just say we've got a family, let's say we have neighbors. One has one child going to college, one has two. Walk us through what they're going to experience.
Well, the basic thing is that what the formula does, is it calculates how much you can afford to pay for college. So it looks at your income. It sets aside a certain amount that says, okay, this is your bare living expenses that you need. Sort of like with taxes, how we used to have the exemption, and now we have the deduction. Set aside the bare expenses. Above that, some percentage of your income and your assets, they expect you to pay to tuition. The more income you have, the more you're expected to pay. What it has always been to date is that if they calculate, you can afford about $30,000 in tuition based on your income and your savings and checking account, they used to say, and you're sending two kids to college, so $30,000 is the total you'll pay, $15,000 per kid, and the rest will be covered by grants and loans. Now they don't do that last part. They say, you can afford to pay $30,000 in college for both of your kids. So now you're talking $60,000. And to put that in a little perspective, I have three children who will be in high school next year, which means 5 years from now, I could very well have three children in college. They would expect me to pay over 120% of my income plus my savings in college tuition. That is all the money I've saved up plus all the money I make plus another 20% is what they would expect for me to be able to hand over. So it makes zero logical sense, but as of January 1st, it's a law.
Wow. And that's often how these things play out. And so now what is the path forward with this? Are there any paths in terms of the fix there, or are we into just kind of dealing with that? Is there anything that can be done either by legislation at the federal level? Is it something a governor could take on in terms of how this gets implemented at the local level? What does that look like?
Well, certainly states will have to, and private colleges are going to have to make their own policies that deviate from this. They're going to have to say, okay, we are going. So there would be nothing to stop a state school from allocating its financial aid the old way. So this will impose a burden on Utah because Utah probably benefited the most from what they used to call the sibling discount. So less money coming from federal grant money and more would have to come from the state government. So that's the first thing. So the states, if they have just been following what the federal government does on this, states are explicitly going to have to change that and say, no, you will, your ability to pay will be divided by the number of children in college. That's step number one. Step number two is for Congress to change this. I don't think most members of Congress realized what they were doing, that they were passing an anti-family bill. Even the language used by the people who defended it says, well, no, we should be considering students as individuals rather than as parts of family. I don't think we should be considering people more as individuals and parts of family. That's exactly the problem that you and I have been talking about every time we've gotten on the air for the last 5 years. And so Congress could go ahead and just say, actually, no, we still are going to divide the financial aid, the parents' ability to pay by the number of kids in college. That would be a pretty simple bill. I've made calls into Capitol Hill to see if there's any desire to do that. I haven't heard back yet. It's also possible, and I don't know, that the Education Department could issue a rulemaking that changes its implementation. That's something, lawyers and the Education Department will have to figure out.
Yeah, and I think that's so vital. And this is one that everyone ought to weigh in with your member of Congress, because this is clearly one where just the rulemaking folks just got a lot over their skis, or a lot anti-family over their skis in terms of how this happened and rolled out. Like you said, I haven't found anybody in Congress who knew this was happening or that this started in January or what this rule was. But hopefully there'll be somebody with some bold leadership there to make this happen, either by rule change, as you said, or whether Congress needs to step in and make something happen that way. And that leads me to where I want to round out. I want you to give us a little bit of a tease, a little projection forward. You got a new book coming up here in March called Family Unfriendly: How Our Culture Made Raising Kids Much Harder Than It Needs to Be. We've just given one example of how it's become harder to get your kids into college. But give us a little behind-the-scenes look in terms of the genesis of this book. You always do the deep dive and crisscross the country to make sure you're on path there. Tell us what your experience has been.
Well, since I'm thinking of Utah right now, I'll say that it was speaking to Natalie Gotchnauer over there in Salt Lake City, a demographer at the University of Utah. And she made the point to me that the Catholics, I'm a Catholic, she said the Catholics in America who have the most children are the Catholics who live in Utah. And she said there's something in the air here where we just have more kids. And I visited Israel on a religious retreat and stayed around a couple of days to ask people why Israel has such a higher birth rate than any country in Europe, any other wealthy country, and that's even true for the non-religious. The secular Jews have more babies in Israel than the whole population in Europe per woman. And what I found was that in these communities, it wasn't just the religious teaching that led people to have more children. It was that the religious communities had created a culture, maybe a subculture in some places, but a culture that was family-friendly, that supported people, that made it, hey, it's normal to have a handful of kids. Hey, we will support you in having kids. Hey, we'll charge per family at the annual picnic rather than per person. Just all of these little things added up to a culture that was family-friendly. And then I looked at the birth rate in the U.S. It's been falling ever since 2008. It didn't rebound when the economy did. So that made it clear to me that our broader culture in the United States is not, in fact, family-friendly. It's family-unfriendly. And the argument of the book is that's the problem that has to change.
Yeah, and there's so many components to that, everything from this kind of being afterthought in terms of family and children to even the way we go about parenting, kind of the helicopter parenting, hyper-controlled, checklist-driven, super team sponsored, all of the things that are exhausting and exasperating everyone. Give us one thing just to be thinking about as we look forward to March and the book coming out that might be part of the solution moving forward.
Well, near me, there's a program that practices that runs a lacrosse camp program year-round, and it's called Next Level Lacrosse. And so these are 8-year-old boys trying to get to the next level, and they're meeting there 3 or 4 times a week, and it's really intensive and really expensive, and I don't think it helps anybody. It doesn't create next-level lacrosse players. It creates more anxious parents and more anxious kids. So what I say is the best team for your kid, if you're going to put them in sports, is the one that practices across the street. So don't put them in next level lacrosse, what the society expects you to do today. Put them in next door lacrosse. Put them in whatever is the easiest thing for your family. That too many people center their lives and their family lives around trying to get maximum achievement for their kids instead of building a strong, healthy family culture.
Yeah, so much more than maximum achievement. It's really the maximum meaning is what we ought to be going for, and that's rarely found in a checklist, a to-do list, or a super team trophy at the end of the year. And as always, Tim Carney, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, also senior columnist at the Washington Examiner. Check out, he's actually got 2 pieces up at the Examiner right now. You can check those out, dealing with what's happening with this rule as it relates to federal student aid. That's a crucial one that is clearly not family-friendly at all. Congress, governors, everybody's got to pipe up, speak up, and make something change there. That's a crucial one. Then we'll look forward to Tim's book coming up in March, Family Unfriendly, How Our Culture Made Raising Kids Much Harder Than It Needs to Be. Tim, as always, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Boyd.
All right. Again, that's Tim Carney from American Enterprise Institute. Great thinker. And he's someone who doesn't just write, doesn't just sit in a think tank and think. He does the hard work and heavy lifting. He gets out into community. He crisscrosses the country for real conversations. And that's why he always gets to the better solutions and the better conversations. We'll be right back.
This U.S. Senate race gets better by the day.
Elections officials say next week's deadline may catch some by surprise.
Congressman John Curtis in studio with us live.
This is a major life decision.
Democrats say they will run a candidate but haven't yet said who.
Get updates on who's running each morning this week and get analysis on the candidates later in the day. Listen to David DeGenevic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1. Your voice, your vote 2024 this week
on KSL News Radio.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now, and the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin, ultra soft on the potty. Less is more, so roll it back, everybody. Roll it back. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The crib is always stocked. It's our party vice. Please, so our cheeks feel flat. So what? Everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
with the three things you need to know this hour. I'm Dan Bomas. First, authorities in Iowa are saying now that 6 people were wounded and 1 killed in a shooting at Perry High School this morning. The shooter is also dead. He apparently killed himself. Second, investigators believe a fire that destroyed a large vacant home in Orem was intentionally set. Third, a man accused of attacking the judge in a Nevada courtroom refused to show up for another court hearing today. The DA says the judge is shaken up, but she's okay. 36 degrees and cloudy right now in Salt Lake City, and back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, if you missed some of the conversations, of course, you always want to go to KSL Podcasts, go to Inside Sources, and you can just go through each of the segments of the show, pick out the ones you want to go back and listen to a second time. I often find there's so much of the nuance in many of our guests that going back and listening that second time is like, oh my gosh, I missed that, or wow, I hadn't thought of that part, or I didn't connect that dot. And so always worth it to go back. And one of those conversations that we had today was with Deandra Brown. Many of you know Deandra as part of the Five Browns, Juilliard-trained, incredible pianist-playing family who've traveled the world. And she's been an advocate in so many important places and conversations. And as we were having our conversation, we were actually talking about a piece she wrote for Deseret.com about the middle ground and how misunderstood that is in today's very hyper-partisan, very divisive rhetoric of our politics. And it's so true that the higher ground of common ground, you have to get at it a little different way. And so we actually leaned in a little bit to her artistic background and what it takes to actually collaborate on a song. How you actually come together as 5 pianists, each with an idea and a perspective and a point of view, or maybe even a vision of what a piece should look like or sound like. And how you have to come together and compromise, how you have to all buy in the end in order to actually play it well together. You can't, like I often see in business meetings, people may leave the meeting saying, okay, fine, we all agree. But then everyone gets outside and grumbles in the hallway or talks to somebody at the water cooler and says, I'm not going to do that. So there's that negative vibe. Consensus is not about 100% agreement. It's about 100% support once a decision is made. That's common ground. And so as we were having this conversation with Deandra Brown about politics and art, it actually reminded me to reflected back to a piece that I read over the weekend that I just can't get out of my head. So I'm going to get it out of my head and share it with you because it's the connection between art and freedom and hope. There was a brilliant piece in The Hill. It was written by Omaid Sharifi, who is the co-founder and president of Art Lords, is senior manager for protections programs for the artists at Risk Connection at PEN America. And he wrote this piece that just struck me so powerfully because he talked about what is happening in Afghanistan and how as Afghan artists are being taken out by the Taliban, what that does to hope and freedom. And think about that. Art, even in America, or especially in America, has always been part of the movement forward of freedom. It's also been part of protest. And whether it was the words to a strident song, whether it was a visual piece of art, whether it was poetry, whether it was an opinion piece in a paper, all of those portions of art, music in particular, that just stirs the soul. And the Taliban knows that's dangerous. The Taliban sees art as dangerous, as a challenge, and as a threat to their power and control. And so this group, which has been around for about 7 years now, it is an artist collective. They've been creating murals about social issues. They collaborate with local communities. Many of these communities are just so demoralized, so disenchanted with how things have gone in Afghanistan. And they're all starting to vanish because artistic expression in Afghanistan is now criminalized. Think about that. That when we criminalize art, whether that's music, poetry, painting, whatever expression of art it is, words, that's a real threat to freedom. We never think about that here in the United States. And just think of some of the museums or the galleries or institutions that you've been to. I still hold as one of the most sacred spaces for me was the art in the United States Capitol. And I would often walk through that dome at midnight after long days in Washington, D.C., and I would often stop there and look at the art, whether it's the statues and sculptures or the amazing murals, the frescoes, all of those things which are so rich in imagery, in symbolism, connected to the powerful principles that formed this nation. And we often take that for granted in this country. So now we have in Afghanistan the Taliban who's criminalizing artists. We already know what they've done to women and girls, that they have once again banned them from pursuing education and careers, but particularly careers in the arts. Because to the Taliban, that is the most dangerous thing. In the context of this piece at thehill.com, they talk about what the Taliban has been doing, breaking up artists that have been together, weddings that had music, young girls that were learning how to paint, how to sing. That's an interesting thing for us to think about here in the United States, is the role of the arts. And I actually think we need a bigger role for the arts in our approach to politics. There's a lot to be said about some good harmony, about collaborating. There's important things in terms of perspective and lines and imagery and symbols